Let's discuss all of this, the brilliant special operation by the SBU and Suigers, with top analyst Alexander Demchenko right now.
Generals have been eliminated, the top military command has been destroyed, officers, colonels, and so on have been wiped out. The entire leadership of the 8th Combined Arms Army gone. The Russian army has been decapitated. There is no one left. I don't know how much more has to happen on the territory of the Russian Federation before they finally get rid of that drunken General Gerasimov for good. I think that, in fact, the 8th Combined Arms Army of the Russian Federation no longer really exists. Because in case anyone doesn't know, the missiles were launched. They targeted the locations where the 8th Combined Arms Army of Russia was stationed and deployed. These fools probably thought that Ukraine had no more missiles left and that Ukraine wouldn't strike that far. But what does far even mean if Ukraine has already struck as far as Irkutsk? I don't know how much more has to happen on the territory of the Russian Federation before they finally get rid of that drunken General Gerasimov who just throws his people away in huge numbers. First of all, Putin doesn't care. And second, during his time, even Kursk has been taken. And during his time, 41 planes have already been destroyed. The Crimean bridge has been blown up, and now they've just gone and wiped out an entire army. The 8th Combined Arms Army of Russia in Donetsk. They kept saying, all of Luhansk is ours, the whole Luhansk region is ours. They hit the oil refinery in Luhansk region, struck the railways, the railroad tracks in Donetsk region to keep them from advancing, to stifle the offensive, to choke it off. Missiles flew over Crimea, drones flew as well. And now they don't show anything in the public channels, in the Crimean public channels, just a few cries and squeals here and there. Oh, they're coming. Oh, what are we going to do? You shouldn't have gone there, and you had no business settling there. What the hell did you come there for? To occupy someone else's land? Occupiers. That's it. And the Crimean bridge is always a problem. There's still a traffic jam there. No one is coming. No one can leave. They've pickled them in there. You see? Pickled them. What gets to me most of all, Dasha, in this whole story, not that it surprised me. Putin hasn't surprised me in a very long time, but let's put it this way. I have an unpleasant feeling, a bad aftertaste, because I understand that Putin is preparing a series of terrorist attacks. In the coming days and weeks, there will be a large series of terrorist attacks. Did I tell you about the terrorist attacks? There was Bryansk, there was Kursk, there was Voronezh. A huge number of civilians were killed by Putin and the FSB. I'm saying it once again now. In the coming days and weeks, there will be a series of terrorist attacks across all of Russia, most likely in Moscow, maybe also in other central or important regions, cities of the Russian Federation. What do I mean by that? If you noticed, recently Vnukovo airport was almost destroyed. That is, a Russian anti-missile shot down a Ukrainian drone that wasn't even heading for Vnukovo. It was flying toward military targets. They shot down this drone and it fell right into the yard, basically, of the airport, into the area near the airport. People were not evacuated. The carpet plan. So, obviously, there are no takeoffs, no landings, all flights are canceled, everything is at a standstill, the information boards aren't working. But thousands of people are left to stew, stuck there on the airport grounds. They're not being evacuated. Nothing is being done with them. The airport is blocked off. Everything is closed. The area is sealed. Buses aren't running. That's it. They're just there. Civilians, Muscovites. Yeah. So they were probably preparing a strike to kill thousands of people right there on the spot so that later they could blame everything on Ukraine. And why congratulate Putin on the holiday, which you know is called, do you know how to say ass in Ukrainian? Sraka, zadnitsa. In Russia, they're raising tariffs by 40 to 45%. If you add up all the federal, regional, and city tariffs for utilities, sum them all together. There's a taxi drivers' revolt. Every third taxi driver didn't go to work. Gazprom is minus $1 trillion, bankrupt. Who's going to pay for it? The ordinary Russian citizen. They're facing a catastrophe. They call it a recession, but in Russian, it just sounds like a mess. And now Vladimir Putin has no money for the war. Everyone is saying this and everyone knows it. Nabulina knows it, Silvanov knows it, and even Sechin and Patrushev know that there's no money left for the war. And Putin knows it too. So what should be done now? I can predict what needs to be done. To escalate, on the one hand, the amounts. Belarus, the direction of the southeast, just to show at least some victories, to sell at least something to their own plebs. And secondly, of course, to make the contract army in Russia cheaper or abolish it altogether, shifting everything to a mobilization footing. Mobilization. Why pay this cannon fodder, which will be wiped out here in 3 weeks anyway, and turn into disgusting, occupying, howling humus for Ukrainian soil? If you can just not pay them and achieve the same result. So right now, they are preparing mass terrorist attacks, a series of attacks all across Russia. I don't know what will be burning. Will the Yaroslavsky Central Station be burning, or some other station in Russia? Will the State Department store be burning? Will there be explosions in the metro? I don't even know what will happen. Will they blow up Ostankino together with Ernst to hell? I don't know. But I understand perfectly well that from Luzhniki to Prechistenka, from Prechistenka to I don't know where, to Kashirka, absolutely everything will be burning. Because right now, Putin needs to escalate, to mobilize the population and throw them in again. This is Vabank. He's playing for everything. This is his last desperate push because there's no money left. Few people noticed, but this is important news that just came out. Abramovich suddenly pulled all his money out of Connecticut, out of America. He's now selling his steel plants. He invested $5 billion there, $5 billion. The minimum estimated value is $5.2 billion, and he's selling them for $50 million. Now, pay attention. What happened? I'll explain what happened. Putin was given a clear signal that there would be sanctions. They were warned. Whoever flew to Washington and talked to Trump's people, they were told to get their money out because now they're going to get hit on the hands, the legs, and the cheeks. And Putin told his wallet, the person who keeps his money, his handler, he said, Roma, get the money out immediately. Immediately. Whatever you manage to get out is yours. Take it. Roma arranged for 50 as an advance and 450 as a severance over the course of several months. Whether Roma will manage to formalize it or not is unclear. 95% losses on just one business. The entire Evraz group is moving to Moscow. Putin is locking Abramovich up in Russia. Abramovich is finished. Putin's wallet has simply died. That's the important news, Dasha. So Putin has problems both inside Russia and outside of it. And now Putin has to escalate and push things forward. That's why there will be bombings. He's already carrying them out. Every few days, there's a massive bombing of Ukraine. He's setting anti-records. About 500 drones, 60 missiles, and so on and so forth. Recently, again, there were strikes today. Zaporizhzhia, Odessa. It's unclear what will happen next, but there will be bombings, there will be terrorist attacks, and a storm of sabotage. And this is what Putin is going to do now. Vladimir Putin will do this on a massive scale. So take a look. This is my forecast for you, since you often ask at the end of the program. As for the forecast, here it is. Terrorist attacks in the coming days, weeks, terrorist attacks. And everything will burn. The man who could destroy homes with civilians inside, who could blow things up and terrorize 4 times over. Petron. Moscow, who could just take it and do it. And just like that, destroy a neighboring country. He is capable of anything. He was ready to destroy a train with civilians in the Bryansk region. He is ready to do anything now. He has no other option. He will now start throwing off ballast. For him, Russians are ballast.
Sasha, you've raised a very important topic. Friends, please like this video. Our format is Dasha plus Sasha, Sasha plus Dasha. Every week we work on my YouTube channel. Thank you for 700,000. We've reached this milestone and we are very grateful to you. Friends, write in the comments what you think about this. Give us a like and let us know where you're watching from. I always read where you're watching us from and if you'd like to send support to Ukraine. Sasha, so Yermak came out and said that the Sapsan is launching a ballistic missile into production. Now we've seen how the missiles flew towards Crimea, missiles flew towards Donetsk, towards Luhansk. What will happen next? Will missiles fly towards Moscow and St. Petersburg, targeting military facilities?
Yes, everything will fly. That's clear. That's exactly what's next. I'm concerned about completely different things. The fact that the Sapsan will fly and Neptune, yes, will fly, and other missiles that are being developed right now. What do you think only 2 missiles are being developed? There are already different modifications. Hundreds of missiles have long been developed and are being prepared, stockpiled for strikes. Notice this is what distinguishes the current situation, the situation from yesterday to today from the previous ones. Let me explain. Not only did drones fly, but missiles did as well. Missiles were launched en masse, which means they are being stockpiled, which means the British, the French, and all the Europeans are supplying them. It means there are the right decisions from the NATO summit. It means Europe has accepted the challenge, and Europe will strike back. And unlike Putin, Europe has the money for this. That's why Putin is whining in Belarus, in Minsk, and saying that he's going to scale back with the welder, and I hope he'll just go ahead and cut all defense spending. But the reason is simple and clear. As I always say when wrapping up on this topic, Putin doesn't have money for the war. The climax is approaching. The end is near, friends. But that's not even the main issue. What worries me about this final stage of the process? I'm concerned that Putin has surely decided to take Belarus under his control, that he still intends to use Belarus as a staging ground, whether Lukashenko wants it or not, either for offensive actions against Ukraine, Kyiv-Chernihiv, or for air raids on central Ukraine, Kyiv-Chernihiv, or in the north-central region, or even directly for an attack on the Baltic states. But we've discussed this with you many times. I have another scenario in mind. Do you know which one, Dasha? I suspect that in the near future, Putin will try to remove Lukashenko. I think a coup d'etat is coming soon in Belarus. Putin surely has a plan B. He has a plan B, according to which Lukashenko needs to be removed. His entire security detail has already been bought off. One of the agents, his press secretary, Natalia Eismont, is a KGB agent. Everyone knows this well, Agent S. Everyone knows that his Wolfovich, the secretary of the Security Council, works for the Kremlin, and everyone knows that his prosecutor general works for the Kremlin. He has only one defense minister who is loyal to him, and his son, Viktor Lukashenko. He is the one who constantly saves him, who keeps his paratroopers ready in case they try again, like they did a few years ago, to remove him and get rid of him. Vladimir Putin wanted to do this during all those protests in 2020, and Lukashenko knew this perfectly well, and he knows all about it. But Gazprom's money is hidden there. A lot of things were hidden there in 2020. But even now, what's important is this. I think that if Vladimir Putin needs Belarus and Lukashenko turns away, right now he's turning around like a snake, making a full 180-degree turn. He's twisting and turning, trying to move toward Trump, hoping Trump will save him so that Belarus doesn't become a staging ground, so that no one messes with Belarus, so he doesn't get dragged into this whole story. Putin's story. Putin is making his last push. Lukashenko doesn't want this final push. It would be better if Putin makes his last push and ends up somewhere in the ground during that push, rather than Lukashenko. You see, for Lukashenko, it's important to outlast, outwait, and ultimately outlive Putin, because he knows that in the end, only one will be left standing. So Putin wants to be the one left at the end, without Lukashenko, and to put his own puppet in that place. His next colonel or lieutenant colonel, not from Belarus, but from Russia. But Lukashenko doesn't want that. But since the issue is very pressing right now, since Vladimir Putin needs a Belarusian foothold, needs Belarusian territory, needs this war, needs escalation, and the intensification of everything and everyone, I keep saying this tirelessly. He needs to get rid of Lukashenko if Lukashenko says, sorry, all I have for you is bread and potatoes. Bread and potatoes. There's nothing else. That's exactly why Vladimir Putin will most likely try to either squeeze Lukashenko even harder, and if that doesn't work, he'll try to remove him. And there's only one way to remove him. We all know perfectly well which one. Liquidation. That's why the security has been bought. Everyone has been bought, and Lukashenko knows this perfectly well. He understands all the risks, weighs all the risks, and he is preparing for a confrontation with Putin. For Ukraine, it's important that Putin doesn't touch or destroy Lukashenko right now, no matter what kind of person Lukashenko is. This is what is important now. God forbid that Putin gains complete control over the territory of Belarus. Now he doesn't have complete control. No. No matter how anyone wants to conditionally or exaggerate the situation to the point of impossibility, or on the contrary, downplay the impact. Lukashenko has influence on Belarus. Lukashenko controls Belarus. And Lukashenko is currently walking in tandem with Putin. And it's still unclear why. That's why I see such a scenario as quite serious for us. It's a very important challenge, and it's crucial to keep an eye on this right now at this very moment.
You've brought up a very important topic. We will definitely talk about Kadyrov and about Teludinov and about the ethnic wars on Russian territory, and of course about the conflict between Azerbaijan and Russia. But another topic that also impressed me was the golf game between Lindsey Graham and Trump. They played golf. And Trump said that, as I understand it, after the Senate returns from recess, they might vote for hellish sanctions against Russia. And now, attention, what will Putin do? Will he somehow try to persuade Trump not to make this decision so that the Senate doesn't go through with it? Or will they go ahead and pass it anyway? And what will happen to Putin then?
Dasha, what will Vladimir Putin do? He'll save the money. He's already doing that. After all, I already told you about Roman Arkadyevich Abramovich. They're already moving the money out. They're already moving their export money, what they're still earning from, their main capital and wallet, the Evraz Group. They're already moving it out of the state. He's already trying to save his offshore accounts, his shell companies, his money. He's already doing it. He handed over the investment portfolio to Kirill Dmitriev so that he would be untouchable, made him a sort of diplomatic figure who could protect certain investment projects in the US. Vladimir Putin's money in the States or in Europe or wherever else. He's already doing it. The plans have been drawn up long ago. What will Vladimir Putin do? He will try once again to blur the issue. He will try once again to drag things out, to start some kind of negotiation process. He'll talk about humanitarian exchanges. They're already talking about children. They're already gathering some children there and so on. All of this is already happening. The question is something else. Why do I say some children? Because it's not for transfer. They're showing children who are currently living in Donbass, which is occupied. And he's talking to them. You're doing it wrong, damn it. Press, you're working out. Hands behind your head, Kat said to the children. And Nabiulina and a few other faces are sitting there laughing at Vladimir Putin's jokes. They're laughing because they know that soon they'll be lined up against the wall, hands behind their heads, and that same Putin will have them shot to hell. Nabiulina senses that things are going to go to hell in Russia. And she knows that everything will be blamed on her. And she knows that a terrible fate awaits her. And that she'll either simply be neutralized, disposed of, or God forbid, even eliminated. In the literal sense of the word. That's why Putin is already getting ready. They'll try to butter up Trump, negotiate with him. Let's talk about a meeting. Well, listen, Trump can't stall anymore. The only thing he's giving, just like to the Iranians, is time to prepare. So the Iranians managed to take the missiles and move them somewhere. At least some of them, anyway. Well, now this guy, instead of missiles, nuclear cash. He takes it in suitcases, not nuclear ones with a button, but just regular ones. Puts the money in a bank and moves it to Russia, to Russia, to Russia. He only cares about money and power, nothing else. There's no question of history here, of how he'll go down in history. All of that is just for the masses. It's like chess for idiots, even. The real question is something else. There's only one question: how to hold on to power, how to keep the money, how to pass that money on to whoever it needs to go to. That's it. Ideally, not to pass it on to anyone at all and just live forever. That's it. There's nothing else. There's nothing else. And the sanctions will remain. And the sanctions will be tough. But those sanctions would have been much tougher if Putin hadn't had time to prepare. It's one thing when you've moved your money out and it's not at risk. It's another thing when you no longer have any money. So what are you going to do next? Or what if that money gets frozen? We're not talking about $300 billion of Russian gold and foreign currency reserves here. Some funds that are floating around Europe. He doesn't care about that money. That's Russian people's money, not his. But this is his money. And the main thing is to make sure this money isn't touched. And right now he's writing everything else off. That's what's happening now. Putin is grabbing money from every possible source. He's just taking it. The problem is he has nowhere to go. He won't be able to fly anywhere. He can't hide the money anywhere except his own bunker. And everyone knows everything about that bunker. The Americans know, Putin's security knows, Patrushev knows, everyone in the world knows.
By the way, you mentioned before that American and European intelligence agencies know all the bunkers. They completely monitor Putin's movements. And if necessary, they could eliminate him. That's actually a very interesting topic.
Of course they could. Yes, of course they know. Moreover, they know what materials the bunkers are made of and in which specific building the locks are, where Vladimir Putin is located. Right now, they know which rooms he has, where his underground passages are, and so on. Iranian engineers, like North Korean ones, are different from Russian engineers. Do you know how? It's actually their professionalism. They can really build bunkers properly, construct hangars correctly, and even make underground corridors. North Korean engineers, for example, dig underground tunnels that go directly to South Korea, and no one even knows about their existence. But for Putin, everything was done by Russian bungling engineers who just stole money and didn't do anything properly. They didn't provide any real protection, and Putin knows perfectly well that his bunker, from a security standpoint, is no better than his portable toilet. If it explodes, all the crap will just burst out in every direction and nothing will be left. Yeah, it's awful.
I suddenly thought about how you always say that if Iran flares up, if that happens, then the Middle East will flare up and the Caucasus will flare up too. Sasha, what's actually happening right now? Why are some kind of interethnic wars starting within Russia itself? Where could this lead?
Well, right now they're obsessed and they blame everything on migrants. The head of the Russian Orthodox Church, Kirill, together with Bastrik and Putin's buddy and his classmate from Leningrad, stirred up a mass hysteria. In this mass hysteria, who's carrying it out? The FSB. And on the ground, it's the cops, the police, who are the executors. Well, the militia there. The militia are the executors. That's it. Although maybe it's already the police now. Who the hell knows what they call them in Russia these days? But that's not the point. The point is something else. They came, detained someone, started talking about the Safarov brothers. Damn, they put 50 people in Yekaterinburg face down on the floor. Another operation of theirs. But at the same time, they simply kidnapped people. A bunch of people are just gone. It's unclear where they are now. At the same time, they killed two. They killed two people. They killed two people. They just tortured them. They beat them, tortured them, and so on. In the basement, they killed them. They beat them to death. It's unclear how and for how long they were beaten or what else was done to them. Now the bodies have been brought to Baku, to Azerbaijan. Two bodies. There's hysteria there. They start beating. Obviously, this is also revenge against Azerbaijan. Oh, so the plane was shot down. We shot down the plane, and now we're supposed to apologize. Yeah, who are you for us to apologize to you? Some Caucasians, some Ukrainians, some Belarusians, some Moldovans. We are great, we are Russians. The whole country is in shit, but we are great. And this greatness is left God knows where. And even that was all built by foreigners. Italians, Portuguese, Jews, French, Germans, and so on down the list. But they killed two people. What did Ali do? Yes, he gave Putin and all the others a loud slap in the face and they bought off the plane. But now, what can you do? You can't buy your way out of it, not at all, because it's already happened. This is already the second incident. They took two FSB agents. That's what happened. The essence of the situation is that they have now taken two specific FSB officers who, under the guise of being journalists with press credentials, journalists, propagandists, Sputnik Azerbaijan, Sputnik Russia, they were working there in Baku. Two FSB agents. Dasha, this has never happened before. Nothing like this has ever happened before. For something like this to happen on the territory of post-Soviet countries, at least in Central Asia and the Caucasus, Ukraine is a separate story. In Central Asia and the Caucasus, they took and twisted their arms, sent them to prison, tried to deport two FSB agents and made it public. These two officers, FSB agents who, by the way, as I saw in 1 year, one of them received 2 million and the other more than 1 million. What kind of journalists, excuse me, feel free to bleep this. What kind of journalist do you have to be to get that kind of money? Especially for Azerbaijan, that's a lot of money. You can live quite well on that, really. You can even live very well. So what kind of journalists and propagandists do you have to be? I don't know what will happen next, but with this kind of approach, soon Aliyev will grab Margarita Simonyan by the scruff, kidnap her, and send her to a sharashka if Putin doesn't get the message any other way. If Putin doesn't get the message any other way, and I suspect that the situation will only get worse from here. In other words, both Baku and Moscow have dug in their heels. Putin doesn't want to apologize. Aliyev doesn't want to swallow it and won't swallow it. Turkey is backing Aliyev. There's a joint army there. If Ankara and Baku want to, they could completely shake up all of Central Asia and the entire Caucasus. And it would be very difficult for Putin. Even without Iran, they could very well handle it on their own. Now just imagine the Turkish army suddenly appearing in Crimea. Where will the Black Sea Fleet of the Russian Federation be if Erdogan goes in there under the guise of peacekeeping? Putin does love peacekeepers after all. So little green men, Turkish little men will enter, red little men with a crescent moon. What will he do then? Where will his Black Sea Fleet be? Where will all his occupiers be? Where will his army be stationed? Where will it stand? What will happen to the Crimean Bridge? Then, what will happen to the Crimean Bridge if Malyuk hands explosives over to Erdogan? You see, we talk, we discuss all these things, Dasha, but the most remarkable thing in this situation is the following. They came in, entered, anything could have happened. They could have been connected to crime. All these people, they could have worked somewhere. It could have been an organized crime group. They could have been legal. They could have been ordinary civilians. We have no idea what it was at all. They broke into people's homes and killed them. Killed and tortured them. That's the most important thing. It doesn't matter what was going on there, what the background was. They came in, killed, tortured, and there was an order from above. They would never have done this if there hadn't been an order from above. If there hadn't been an order from above, they took the Tajik after the Krokostikova incident, tortured him. There was an order from above. They took these people, tortured and killed them. There was an order from above. And Putin is responsible for this, and Bestrikin is responsible, and all those people who stirred up this migrant hysteria. Now, migrant children are not even allowed to live in Russia at all if they aren't studying. If they don't pass the unified state exam, it's strange. If they don't participate in this whole ridiculous system at all, It's just mass hysteria. And in fact, it's not just about repression. It's a big wave. It's a huge, bloody, repressive machine that's been set in motion. And now they're going to try to do things in parallel, all in order to strike very harshly and forcefully at all the former republics. Notice, Dasha, this is the last thing I'll say. Right now it's Azerbaijan, now it's Azerbaijan. They've set their sights, they're already in the State Duma, all those Zatulins. They're saying Azerbaijan is next, that's our territory. Azerbaijanis are basically Russians, just a different kind of Russians. They say Turkey has nothing to do with them, they're already saying that over there. But Dasha, they even struck Kazakhstan with a drone. They launched drones at Kazakhstan, claimed they were Ukrainian, but it was actually Russia's defense minister Belousov and chief of the general staff Gerasimov who launched them. The drones flew toward Kazakhstan. I think she's just in shock, to put it politely, from this whole situation. Lukashenko had just shared a loaf of bread with Putin, and then, bam, Russian drones are flying at Kazakhstan. Well, what kind of signal is that? Another signal and you're ours. In other words, he's already losing his mind. Let me explain the reason. There's only one reason. There's no money left for Ukraine. At this point, whatever happens, happens. Especially after Trump's sanctions. So here, at least in his mind, he's starting to back down little by little. But he needs a constant war. Kazakhstan? Well, okay, that's still a story in itself. There's China over there. With Azerbaijan, Turkey. But he needs to pick a victim. Who's next? Now it's Armenia. There's hysteria there. The Orthodox Church. We sent our agent oligarch, and you're trying to destroy him there. He's looking for a victim. He's looking for a place to start another war over a ditch. Right now, and soon he'll open a second front.
I just wanted to add, when you mentioned it, Morden literally made a statement yesterday that he's evacuating a Russian city, and that it's time to start the special military operation.
There you go, exactly, that's it. They're already getting ready for something. They still can't forgive Aliyev for how he slapped them in the face during the Karabakh situation. They can't forgive Aliyev for the fact that Putin was the one who had to apologize to him. They can't forgive Aliyev for simply turning around and siding with Ukraine. And now imagine, Dasha, we're talking about Turkish troops, Erdogan, all of that. Let's take them out of the equation. Azerbaijan and Turkey are two key countries through which all sanctioned goods enter Russia. Besides China and Iran, these two countries are the most important. Imagine if they were no longer there. If they block all dual-use goods, civilian goods, and so on. What will Putin be left with, along with his aging, crumbling economy, where, I repeat, today is a disaster? A red-letter day on the calendar. What is he going to do with it? Nothing. So he's in a situation where he escalates where there's no need to escalate. But he can't stop anymore. I think that's obvious. Imagine if, on top of everything else, we had bombed all of Putin's Oreshnik as well. All the warehouses with Oreshnik. The warehouses with Oreshnik went up in flames. There is no more Oreshnik. That's it. A catastrophe. Can you imagine such news? Now that's a success. Did you remember this? And then the news came that Arestovich was almost beaten up. Some grandfather. They're actually saying that he almost beat up Arestovich. Some old man. It is against this background that Dasha reads such news. Listen. In my opinion, this is simply some kind of surrealism. But we live in a world where, on the one hand, Putin is preparing strikes against Oreshniks. And Putin is trying to destroy Ukraine. And on the other hand, some old man, some patriot is beating up Alexei Arestovich at some market in Spain. This is the kind of world we live in today. Although both pieces of news have a lot in common, there is one thing they have in common. You can't just lose your humanity in any situation. If you lose your humanity, if you betray, you'll get punched in the face.
I have a question, Sash. How did they let Alexei Arestovich leave Ukraine? That's the main question.
I don't know. I'm interested in another question. I have another main question, Dasha, regarding Alexei Arestovich. And on what money, Dash? Or is Alexei Arestovich living on Russian money? First. Second question. And why is he even needed? There was this psychotherapist in the country who sold out to who knows whom and is now pushing completely Kremlin narratives. And third question. Why is his rhetoric now identical to Medinsky's? These are the important questions. Let the law enforcement agencies and authorities of Ukraine answer everything else regarding Alexei Arestovich, or not Alexei Arestovich, but anyone else like him. And
our audience, by the way, can also comment on something. Great topic for comments. We just asked these questions with Sasha. How did he leave the country? How was he allowed to? Whose money is he living on? And all the questions that Sasha asked. So, dear audience, write in the comments what you think about this. We leave it up to you. Yes, Sasha?
You see, what's amazing is that a person who had such high political influence and organization in Ukraine just died, politically dead. He's a political corpse now. And he buried himself. He buried himself behind the baseboard, you see?
Yes, and by the way, we just remembered Pavel Medinsky said yesterday that Odessa is a Russian city, if I'm not mistaken. They're starting up this rhetoric about Odessa again. As I understand it, there's already information out that Putin wants to capture Odessa. Well, that's a completely unrealistic scenario, but what's even going on in their heads, those blockheads?
Listen, the guy wants to capture Odessa. The guy thinks that if he brings in 50,000 or however many of his soldiers, he'll be able to capture the city. He thinks he'll be able to capture all of Ukraine, even though everyone, even the British, are openly writing now, listen, at this pace it'll take you 99 centuries. You won't live to see it. Just forget about it. He has some kind of senile fantasies. That's important. Medinsky echoes him. Medinsky's job is just like Peskov's. One's a liar, the other just echoes him every single day about something or other. They all lie. They lie to themselves. Really, none of these people matter at all. All the plans are in Putin's head, not on Gerasimov's maps. All the dreams and all the goals are in his head. In Putin's head, not in Peskov's or Medinsky's or anyone else's. He has one goal, to gain and hold on to power and to grab as much money as possible before the end. That's all there is to it. And most importantly, to stay in his seat. He looks and thinks, okay, good, the Ayatollah managed to stay in power. Yes, maybe there's practically no real nuclear weapons left there. Yes, the power there is already shaky. Yes, many from his inner circle are gone, killed off. But he stayed in power. And the country became even poorer. And the country became even more internally outraged, and there will be an even bigger explosion in the future. That's perfectly clear and obvious. But he stayed in power, and he wants to stay in power. And he plans to stay in power. That's his most important goal. To outlast all these Petrushevs, Sechin's, Medvedevs, Shoigu's, Abramovich's, Deripaskas, and stay in power. And if necessary, load people into train cars and send them to Siberia. All those who disagree with the party's policy, or rather with his policy.
Sasha, to wrap up, here's what I wanted to ask you. I don't understand what's going on between the representatives of Chechnya and the Ministry of Defense. What's the situation with what's happening near Belgorod? Did Kadyrov's men beat up a military policeman, forcing Gubarev to go after Laudinov? Why did Adam Kadyrov suddenly get married so abruptly? Is this connected to the fact that Chechnya will soon have a new leader? What do you think is happening between the Ministry of Defense and the Kadyrovites? And why did Ramzan Kadyrov suddenly disappear while his son met with Putin before the wedding?
What's going on? It's another attack on Kadyrov. Kadyrov, on the other hand, is simply showing with this meeting between Putin and his son that everyone should calm down. Power will remain with my clan, no matter what the situation is. Putin supported me, that's it. Everyone relax. And the Ministry of Defense is saying, shut up. And in the FSB, the dissatisfied ones are grumbling quietly too. And those who are helping Kadyrov, on the other hand, for example, the first deputy director of the FSB, they are actually, on the contrary, rubbing their hands with anticipation. So right now, the situation is extremely simple. They showed the son, married off the son, he is the future heir. Kadyrov, for now, is in some kind of condition. We don't know exactly what, but that's it. Power is being demonstrated by Kadyrov. This is a signal to the elite. And immediately, everyone is congratulating the son. Volodin congratulates him, and so does Peskov, and the entire elite are congratulating him. But what are they congratulating him for? Because it's obvious that even Putin has placed his bet on him, though not for right now. There's the issue of age. He's still, I think, 17. For this Adam Kadyrov, among other things, these are issues related to strengthening his position, his clan, and so on. Kadyrov's father will do everything to ensure that power passes to his clan, his sons, his family, his closest circle, and everything else. He's not interested, but he's preparing escape routes. I don't know for whom, for himself, for his close ones, and just like Lukashenko, he's now sending money to Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. That's clear, right? In other words, he's making himself a parachute, a backup airfield, in case something happens to Putin, if Putin rebels, if Lubyanka wins or the Ministry of Defense wins this war. He has a lot of enemies. He's protected only by the National Guard, essentially in the person of Zolotov. In the FSB, he has completely different contacts and contracts. Some support him, some don't, and so on. That's why we saw yet another signal that, yes, the future belongs to me, the future belongs to my family. My successor is my son. Putin supported it. Shut up and keep your nose out of it. I'm not interested in you anymore. And everyone saw this and started congratulating and supporting him. Does this mean that the infighting, some kind of internal struggle, will stop? Will the conflict between the security forces and Kadyrov end? Will the FSB or the Ministry of Defense stop launching drones at gas stations in Chechnya? No. Does this mean that Kadyrov will stop playing his own game and avoid getting involved in situations where he doesn't need to be? For example, he might once again accidentally fail to notice Ukrainian troop concentrations or groupings in a particular direction. No, it doesn't mean that. Does this mean that Putin will abandon Kadyrov? No, because Putin needs Kadyrov, since Kadyrov is truly his loyal foot soldier, no matter how you look at it. Does this mean that Putin might break the alliance? Right now, Kadyrov, who understands this perfectly well and assesses the situation accurately, is handling things normally. He has a very good political instinct, which is why we are actually seeing Kadyrov's power in Chechnya being consolidated right now. And we understand that in this struggle, the Ministry of Defense, individual generals, and Bastrikin's investigators have lost for now. But going forward, the situation will show how things develop.
Friends, our tandem, Dasha plus Sasha, Sasha plus Dasha, delights you with new insider information every week. In the comments, let us know what you think about this, about the geography of our viewers. We work for an audience all over the world so that people know the truth about Russian aggression and Russia's war against Ukraine. That's why every comment from you is priceless. I read all the comments and give them hearts. Top analyst Alexander Demchenko. Sasha, thank you so much and see you soon.
Thank you, Dasha. See you next time. Bye.